Imagine you're standing in a meeting room, or maybe in a casual group conversation. You're explaining something clearly, confidently, and suddenly someone cuts you off. They smirk, roll their eyes, or make a dismissive comment that lands heavier than you expected. For a split second you feel it, the sting of disrespect. Your heart rate rises, your jaw tightens, and every part of you wants to respond, to prove them wrong, to reclaim your dignity right there. We've all been there. Disrespected, underestimated, or treated like our words didn't matter. And most people in that moment react. They snap, argue, or shut down completely. But there's another way, a way the Stoics mastered centuries ago, a way to command respect without saying much at all. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." That isn't weakness. That's strategy. Because true respect doesn't come from raising your voice, it comes from lowering your ego. The men and women who command instant respect don't beg for it. They emanate it through calm, composure, and the power of their words. They know that language, when used with wisdom, can shift the entire dynamic of a room. And you don't need a title, money, or status to hold that kind of power. You just need presence and the right words. In this video, we'll explore 6 Stoic-inspired phrases rooted in the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca that can change the way people treat you. Each phrase holds centuries of insight on emotional control, perception, and quiet strength. By the end, you won't just learn how to earn respect, you'll learn how to embody it. Phrase 1. That's your perspective, not my reality. Epictetus inspired. One of the greatest lessons from Epictetus, a former slave turned philosopher, is that we cannot control what others think or say, only how we interpret it. He taught that events themselves don't disturb us. It's our opinions about them that cause turmoil. This phrase, "That's your perspective, not my reality," is a direct reflection of that wisdom. It's a verbal boundary, calm, powerful, and unshakable. When someone judges you, criticizes you, or tries to define who you are, what they're really revealing is their own lens of perception. Their words are filtered through their insecurities, biases, and experiences. Most people respond emotionally to this kind of criticism, defending, arguing, or trying to convince the other person to see their worth. But a Stoic understands that doing so hands over power. You've entered their world, their perception, their chaos. By saying, "That's your perspective, not my reality," you silently reclaim that power. You acknowledge their viewpoint without validating it. It's a reminder to them and to yourself that truth isn't owned by opinion. You're not rejecting communication. You're rejecting distortion. Psychologically, this phrase works on multiple levels. First, it signals emotional detachment. You are not taking the bait, and that unsettles those who seek to provoke. Second, it reframes dominance. The moment you stay calm while someone else reacts emotionally, you rise in perceived authority. Studies in social psychology show that emotional composure is subconsciously associated with confidence and control, traits that automatically command respect. Finally, it restores self-identity. Instead of letting external opinions define you, you affirm that reality is self-directed, not crowd-controlled. Modern application. Imagine a co-worker says, "You're too sensitive." You take everything personally. Instead of arguing, you take a breath and reply evenly, "That's your perspective, not my reality." You don't defend or explain. You just let the words hang. The energy shifts instantly. The other person realizes they can't define you. Their statement has lost its power. Another example. A friend accuses you of being distant because you've been focusing on personal growth. Instead of apologizing for doing what's right for you, you respond, "That's your perspective, not my reality." You've calmly separated their interpretation from your truth. The phrase doesn't insult, it clarifies. Over time, using this mindset creates emotional armor. You stop bending under opinions, and people begin to sense that you're grounded, someone who can't be manipulated through guilt or validation. Epictetus would remind us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react that matters. When you embody this, you transcend the noise of judgment. You move from reacting to reflecting, from defending to defining. So next time someone tries to pull you into their emotional storm, remember, you don't have to drown with them. Simply smile, breathe, and say, "That's your perspective, not my reality." Phrase 2, peace isn't weakness. Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, ruled the Roman Empire while waging wars both external and internal. His writings in Meditations reveal a truth often misunderstood in today's world. Calmness is not the absence of strength, it's the presence of mastery. The phrase, "peace isn't weakness," reminds us that composure is not surrender. It's control refined into stillness. When someone challenges or disrespects you, the natural impulse is to react, to prove your strength through words, volume, or dominance. But in that very reaction, you give away your control. Marcus understood that true power doesn't need to perform. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Peace, then, is not the lack of fight. It's the discipline to choose your battles wisely. Why this phrase works psychologically. When you stay calm in the face of aggression, it disrupts expectation. Most people expect emotional reciprocity. If they yell, you yell. If they provoke, you defend. By staying at peace, you deny them emotional leverage. Psychologically, this creates a subtle imbalance of power. You're signaling, "I'm in control of myself and therefore of this moment." Neuroscience backs this up. Calmness activates the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for reasoning and decision-making, while anger triggers the amygdala, which controls fight-or-flight reactions. Remaining peaceful means you're thinking while they're reacting. It's not weakness, it's tactical dominance. Modern application. Imagine a colleague mocks your idea in front of others, expecting a heated response. You look at them, pause, and say gently, "Peace isn't weakness." That one line reframes the entire encounter. You're not avoiding conflict. You're refusing to be emotionally hijacked. People around you see who's truly composed and who's controlled by impulse. Or think of an argument with a loved one. Voices rise, tension builds, and you calmly respond, "Peace isn't weakness." It diffuses hostility without submission. You've reasserted that emotional maturity isn't passivity, it's precision. Real-world example. During a corporate negotiation, a young entrepreneur was berated by an older investor who questioned his experience and ideas. Instead of reacting, he smiled and said, "I understand your concern, but peace isn't weakness. It's focus." The investor paused, impressed not by defiance, but by discipline. That calm confidence earned respect. And the deal. Marcus Aurelius embodied this mindset while leading armies and governing Rome during plagues and wars. His strength wasn't in aggression, it was in serenity under pressure. He led through example, showing that composure commands far more respect than chaos ever could. So when the world tests you, when provocation tempts you to explode, remember, silence isn't surrender. Calm isn't cowardice, and peace isn't weakness. It's the highest form of self-command. In a loud world full of overreactions, the calm mind rules. The Stoics knew it. Marcus lived it. And when you embody it, you stop chasing power, because peace is power. Phrase 3. You seem upset. Would you like a moment? Seneca inspired. Few things are more disarming than calm empathy in the middle of chaos. When someone lashes out at you, whether from anger, frustration, or ego, your instinct might be to defend yourself. But Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, taught that anger is a form of temporary madness. To engage with it directly is to become infected by it. The phrase, "You seem upset, would you like a moment?" is your verbal antidote. It acknowledges emotion without absorbing it, and it redirects control back to you. Seneca wrote in On Anger that the greatest remedy for anger is delay. This phrase does exactly that. It slows the fire. Instead of reacting or escalating, you step outside the storm and observe it. You're not matching their emotional energy. You're setting a boundary wrapped in composure. Psychologically, this phrase works on several levels. First, it exposes the other person's emotional state without judgment. When you name an emotion calmly, it triggers meta-awareness. They suddenly become conscious of how they appear. That awareness alone often breaks the momentum of anger. Second, it rebalances power. Instead of you being the target, you become the observer. You're no longer a participant in the chaos. You're the calm anchor others are forced to revolve around. Finally, it preserves dignity for both sides. You're not shaming them. You're giving them space to recalibrate. That earns respect, even from those too proud to admit it. Modern application. Picture this. A manager bursts into your workspace, frustrated about a delay, and starts raising their voice. Everyone tenses up. You look at them steadily and say, "You seem upset. Would you like a moment before we go over this?" In that instant, the dynamic flips. They realize their outburst has been seen, not reacted to, but seen. You've pulled them from the emotional to the rational, or consider a relationship argument. Your partner accuses you unfairly, their voice shaking with anger. Instead of defending, you reply softly, "You seem upset. Would you like a moment?" That single phrase communicates patience, not submission. It shows you're emotionally grounded, unwilling to enter the chaos they're offering. Real-world example. During a board meeting, an executive interrupted a junior analyst with a harsh tone. The analyst paused, then said evenly, "You seem upset. Would you like a moment before I continue?" The room went silent. The executive realized how out of line he appeared and quickly regained composure. The analyst didn't win through argument. She won through awareness. Seneca believed that responding to anger with calm reason was not weakness, but civilization itself. He warned that anger, if not restrained, is more destructive than any other passion. This phrase embodies that restraint. It's a shield made of patience. So, the next time someone tries to drag you into their emotional storm, stand still. Look them in the eye and offer them space, not war. Say it slowly, confidently, and let silence follow. "You seem upset. Would you like a moment?" That's how Stoics win battles without fighting. Phrase 4. I'll choose what deserves my reaction. Marcus Aurelius. In a world that constantly demands your attention, energy, and emotions, the ability to choose your reactions is the ultimate act of power. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, reminded himself daily that you always have the option of having no opinion. He understood that most suffering comes not from what happens, but from how we choose to interpret and respond to it. The phrase, "I'll choose what deserves my reaction," is a direct reflection of this wisdom. It's a declaration of sovereignty over your inner world. Every day, people try to pull you into their chaos. Arguments online, gossip at work, manipulation in relationships, or negativity from strangers. The modern mind is constantly provoked, trained to respond instantly. But Marcus Aurelius would tell you that reacting to everything is a form of enslavement. If anyone can trigger you, they own your peace. This phrase is how you reclaim it. When you say, "I'll choose what deserves my reaction," you're setting a filter. You're telling yourself and the world that not everything merits your energy. It's not indifference, it's discernment. Stoics believed that discipline begins in the mind, and emotional control is its highest form. By consciously deciding what to engage with, you elevate above pettiness and impulse. Psychologically, this phrase works because it rewires your emotional response loop. First, it creates pause awareness, the gap between stimulus and response where power exists. In that pause, emotion loses its grip. Second, it reinforces self-respect. You're reminding yourself that your peace is valuable, not to be spent cheaply on meaningless conflict. Finally, it communicates authority. People instinctively respect those who remain composed under pressure. It signals maturity, control, and quiet dominance, the same traits Marcus Aurelius embodied while leading an empire. Modern application. Imagine someone on social media posts something passive-aggressive about you. Instead of replying in anger, you whisper to yourself, "I'll choose what deserves my reaction." You move on. Hours later, they're still seeking validation through conflict while you've already preserved your peace. That's power they can't touch. Or perhaps a coworker tries to provoke you with sarcasm during a stressful day. You look at them, pause, and simply smile. No reaction. The silence itself becomes your statement, one that says, "You don't control me." Real-world example. A young athlete once told his coach he was constantly angry at online critics. The coach replied, "The lion doesn't turn when the dogs bark." The athlete adopted the mindset behind this phrase, choosing what deserved his reaction. His performance soared, not because critics disappeared, but because their words no longer entered his world. Marcus Aurelius ruled over chaos, yet wrote nightly reminders to remain calm and measured. His legacy proves that the strongest leaders are those who govern themselves first. So the next time someone or something tries to steal your peace, remember, reaction is optional. Power isn't in the last word, it's in the silent choice. Whisper it like a mantra, "I'll choose what deserves my reaction." Phrase 5, "I see your intent, it's noted." Stoic detachment. There's a special kind of strength in seeing through someone's motives without letting them affect you. "I see your intent, it's noted," is the verbal embodiment of Stoic detachment. It's calm, it's surgical, and it's powerful. It doesn't attack, defend, or argue. It simply acknowledges awareness, the kind that disarms manipulation and preserves your dignity. Stoicism teaches that we cannot control the behavior of others, only how we perceive and respond to it. Epictetus said, "We suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgment about them." This phrase is a practice of that teaching. When someone tries to provoke you, deceive you, or guilt you, saying internally or even aloud, "I see your intent, it's noted," keeps you from becoming emotionally entangled in their drama. You move from reaction to observation, from participant to witness. Why it works psychologically when people attempt manipulation. Whether through anger, flattery, or guilt, their power comes from your emotional response. The moment you react, they've succeeded in shifting your focus from reason to emotion. This phrase cuts that thread instantly. It acknowledges awareness, I see your intent, but denies them engagement. It's noted. You remain composed, signaling emotional intelligence and control. Two traits that command instant respect. By saying this, you create an invisible boundary. You're telling the other person, without aggression, that you're conscious of their behavior and not easily swayed. This is especially powerful in confrontations where someone expects you to take the bait. When your calm presence replaces their anticipated chaos, they lose control, and you gain it. Modern application. Imagine a co-worker subtly undermines you in a meeting, trying to make you look incompetent. Instead of arguing or defending yourself, you meet their eyes and say calmly, I see your intent, it's noted. The tone is neutral, but the impact is seismic. It stops the aggressor mid-pattern, exposes their intent to everyone without hostility, and shows you operate on a higher level of self-control. Or consider personal relationships. Perhaps a friend uses guilt to manipulate your time or choices. Instead of over-explaining or apologizing, you reply with measured calm, I see your intent, it's noted. It closes the emotional loop, leaving no fuel for further control. Real-world example. A business leader once shared that whenever negotiations turned manipulative, he'd quietly say, I understand your approach. It was his version of this Stoic phrase, one that froze the room. The other party knew they'd been seen and often recalibrated instantly. Awareness, not aggression, became his weapon. Marcus Aurelius practiced this mindset daily, observing others' motives without anger. He wrote, when you understand someone has erred out of ignorance, why be angry? Teach them or endure it. The modern translation is clear. See clearly, stay calm, act wisely. So when someone plays their game, remember, awareness is armor. Look, recognize, and say it softly, I see your intent, it's noted. Phrase 6. Not everything needs fixing. Marcus Aurelius. In a world that constantly demands action, correction, and improvement, it's easy to believe that every problem requires a solution. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, reminds us otherwise. Not everything needs fixing is a principle of discernment, patience, and inner serenity. It teaches that the greatest wisdom often lies in restraint, knowing when to act and, just as importantly, when to let go. Marcus Aurelius lived under enormous pressure, responsible for an empire's stability, constantly surrounded by political intrigue, war, and personal betrayal. Yet in his meditations, he repeatedly emphasized the importance of focusing only on what truly matters. This phrase reflects that Stoic wisdom. If you expend energy trying to correct every minor irritation, every insult, or every imperfection, you squander the energy meant for what truly deserves your attention. Why it works psychologically. First, it cultivates mental clarity. When you accept that not all situations require a response or correction, your mind frees itself from constant overthinking and unnecessary emotional expenditure. Second, it establishes boundaries. People quickly learn that you're not reactive, which commands respect. You're no longer a participant in every argument, drama, or trivial conflict. You are selective, strategic, and calm. Third, it reinforces emotional resilience. By discerning what is fixable and what is not, you protect yourself from frustration and emotional burnout. Modern application. Imagine a friend constantly nitpicking your decisions or behavior. Instead of countering every critique, you reflect internally and remind yourself not everything needs fixing. You accept that their judgments often stem from their perspective, not reality. By choosing which situations deserve your energy, you preserve peace without passive submission. Or consider the workplace. A colleague makes repeated mistakes that don't critically affect the team's outcome. Instead of reacting impulsively or micromanaging, you focus on what truly impacts productivity and success. That measured restraint demonstrates maturity, foresight, and authority. Real-world example. A manager at a tech company shared how he once received dozens of emails daily from co-workers pointing out minor errors in reports. Initially, he tried to address every single issue, burning out in the process. Eventually, he adopted the mindset of not everything needs fixing. He focused only on errors with significant impact, letting the rest slide. Productivity improved, stress decreased, and colleagues began respecting his judgment, not only his actions, but his priorities. Marcus Aurelius teaches that life isn't about controlling every variable. It's about mastering your own responses. When you internalize that not everything needs fixing, you move from reaction to reflection. You stop chasing the illusion of perfection and start investing energy where it truly counts. Your character, your focus, and your inner peace. So the next time irritation, criticism, or minor chaos arises, pause. Take a deep breath, step back and ask yourself, does this truly require action? If not, let it be. Because sometimes the most powerful choice is to leave things exactly as they are. Not everything needs fixing. That is wisdom. That is Stoic strength. When you master these phrases, you're not just defending your dignity, you're mastering your mind. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Respect isn't demanded, it's commanded. Through presence, not pride. If this resonated, subscribe for more ancient wisdom turned into modern power. Every week,